Hi, everyone. Whoever's there, can you hear me? Hi, Marie-Christine. Bonsoir à toi aussi. Bonsoir à tout le monde. Bonsoir, Daniel. Coucou, Martin. Salut. Good evening, Joanna. Can you all hear me? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can. Sound good? Yes? Fantastic. Amélie, bonsoir te voir aussi. Yes, Kat. Salut, salut, salut tout le monde. I'm glad you hear me. Yes, we hear you. Thank you. Fantastic. Hello. We're just going to wait a couple minutes, and for those who aren't used to it, as you can see, tonight I'm wearing my new reading glasses. I'm still getting used to it. It's only been about a week, not even. So I still have to get my eyes used to it, but it seems I could see quite a bit better than normal, although still not perfect. So we'll see. I might have to go back. Hi from Jason and Lori. Hi to you too. Merci Marie-Christine. Bonsoir Lorraine. Manon, bonsoir à Nouveau-Brunswick. Merci beaucoup Marjo. J'espère que ça me va bien, mais ce qui est important encore plus que ça est que je peux voir. Looking good. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you. I appreciate it. What's important is I can see, but it doesn't hurt if they don't look too bad. Bienvenue dans le club de lunettes, Daniel. Oui, au moins pour l'instant, ils sont juste pour lire, mais Norway. Oh, Uni, how are you in Norway? Hello, all the way in Norway. And over there, it's got to be at least 5-6 hours, I guess, in advance, if not more than that. So you got to be in the early morning over there in Norway. So thank you for tuning in. Amish, hello. Simon, bonsoir à toi, Simon. I'm just going to wait one more minute and then we're gonna get going. J'attends juste une minute, puis on va commencer. Hello, Paddy. And just a reminder, questions asked in English, I will answer in English. Les questions qui sont demandées en français, je vais répondre en français. Puis s'il vous plaît, attendez juste pour que je finisse de parler avant de demander des questions. Hello, Brian. Okay, guys, just to remember, if you don't mind, I'll probably speak for about 10-15 minutes, and then feel free to start asking the questions. I will try to get to as many of them as I can. Bonsoir à toi, Caro aussi. Huguette, bonsoir. Tu vas suivre comme tu peux, mais j'écoute. Comme j'ai dit, Huguette, les questions en français, je vais répondre en français. C'est juste dommage que c'est très, très, très dur d'essayer de faire des sous-titres en français sur un live. Je pense que ça se fait même pas. Joe Collins, hello. Alors, on fait notre mieux. Okay, guys. So I guess we can get going. Thank you everyone for being here. Merci à tout le monde pour être ici. Ceux qui sont avec nous, those that are with us that haven't yet subscribed, please do so. You can't go in the chat. Si vous écoutez, mais pas encore abonné, c'est important de le faire. Sinon, c'est impossible d'aller dans le chat avec nous. OK, s'il vous plaît, aussi, cliquez sur l'affaire notification. Please click on the notification bell. And I hope everyone will enjoy it. And just a reminder, oui, pour ceux en français, mon livre qui a toujours 5 étoiles sur Amazon International après 7 ans, je vais essayer de le faire traduire en français en 2024. For those who haven't yet got it, you can go to my website, Jared Heavens Messenger, pick up the book. It still has 5-star review on Amazon International after 7 years. I will be trying to get it into French as well and making number 2 in 2024. Got your book, Danielle. Did you read it yet? You say you got my book this week. Did you read it yet? I don't mean to put you on the spot, Danielle. Hi from Grand Sault, New Brunswick. Brent, hello from New Brunswick. Martin, nice. Ciao, Paisan. Hi, how you doing, Giorgio? Buonanotte. So, guys, let's talk end of days. Hi, Rob. Rob, the question you have to wait till later. I'm not even going to look at the question yet. We'll get to that later. Yes, Uni, I know you got the book in Norway. Thank you so much. And bonsoir, Nathalie aussi, pour être là. Kat, I'm glad you have my book. Awesome. End of days. It's called many things. And I made a bunch of notes here because there's just so much to talk about. There's been so many books, millions of books written about the end of days. Many refer to it as Armageddon, the end of days. We talk about the tribulation. We talk about Revelation. We talk about the apocalypse. We talk about the rapture. so many different words that we use. Armageddon, Gog and Magog, which is actually just a specific battle. By the way, if we refer just to the Hebrew prophecies and the Old Testament, they're all correct. You've got every religion, every school of thought has their own version. I'm going to try to focus as much as possible on what they all sort of have in common. And then I'm going to discuss how to prepare. And honestly, I really look forward to the question and answer period. Because I look forward to the questions that I'm going to get, and I promise to try to answer it as best as I can. Now, keep in mind, yes, I said that everything is correct, all the different names, but there's so many different versions. Let me just start off by saying, first of all, that we don't actually know 100% how the end of days, how Armageddon, how this is all going to go down. Okay? We have some ideas based on some of the prophecies, whether it be from the Old Testament, the Torah, whether it be from Kabbalistic writings, which talk very heavily about the Messianic era, the end of days. And in essence, that's what it will be. The Messiah, as we say in Hebrew, Mashiach, will be here. Okay? But you have to understand something, whether it's the Torah, the Old Testament, whether it's the New Testament, whether it's Kabbalah, whether it was the prophecies, whether it was the prophecies from the apostles, most of it is parables, which are stories, and metaphors. So there's a very fine line between trying to figure out exactly what they're talking about. The greatest Torah sages in history spoke very often in metaphors and parables. In fact, the entire Torah is filled with parables and metaphors. Okay, much of it is to be taken literally, and much of it is not. Jesus himself was a master of parables and metaphors. So right off the bat, okay, I'm glad you have the book. Thank you, Brian. Right off the bat, it's very difficult to know. And I'll just give you an example. Just numbers, we hear about 7 years, 3.5 years of peace, 3.5 years of war. We hear about 144,000, okay? We hear about it's going to take 100 years, it's going to take 1,000 years. They're all correct in their own way. But the time as we see it will be slightly different than how things go down. Furthermore, in different places, again, because of the parables and the metaphors, the numbers seem to change. There are some opinions that the righteous that have passed on, the dead, will come to life right away. Other opinion is it will only be those that have been buried in Israel that will come to life right away when the Messiah comes. Other opinions, and all of them are valid opinions, other of them have it that it can take 100 years or even up to 1,000 years for the dead to rise. Some say before Mashiach, some say after. So there's no 100% sure answer. And I know every group will say, certain denominations of Christians will say, well, the rapture is going to go down exactly like this. The revelation will go down like this. The tribulation will go down like this. Armageddon will happen at exactly this spot at exactly this time. The Torah, people such as myself who studied the Torah and study Kabbalah will have a different opinion. Okay? Muslims will have a different opinion. There's no way to know exactly what's going down. Some of the things that we do know are as follows. It mentions, for example, in the Torah where we talk about, where you're talking about the tribulation, where we and the apocalypse, we hear about conquest, right? The 4 horsemen: conquest, war, famine, and death. Very similar in the Torah, but in the Torah, it's sword, famine, wild beasts, and then plague, pestilence. Also 4. but somewhat different, not completely different. Okay? What we do know as well, there will be a lot of turmoil. There will be war. We're already in the spiritual war. We already saw with what's going on in Israel. We already saw the physical war. Okay? There's going to be desolation. There will be famine at some point. There will be plagues. There will be diseases. There will be destruction. And everything will be backwards. I think anyone who's living in today's day and age can clearly see that what once seemed to be right is now considered wrong. And what once seemed to be wrong is now considered the norm and right. Everything is backwards. The prophecies are clear that neighbor will be against neighbor, family member against family member. Well, we saw that, in the last few years with the big C. Okay? It says the kids will have no more respect towards their parents. I think most anyone here who's a parent can vouch that what kids get away with nowadays, we sure as heck didn't get away with 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Okay? Every book touches upon similar things, but with their own twist. Whether it's Book of Revelation, the Book of Malachi, from the Torah prophecies, Book of Ezekiel, okay, Daniel, they all touch upon these things, but all in their own way. And this is why it's very, very difficult to be 100% sure of exactly what's going on here. But one thing is clear, whether it's the Torah or whether it's the New Testament, there are a few things that will mark the end of days, the last battle, Armageddon, and the Messianic era. One, there has to be a Messiah, or as we say, Mashiach. For sure, when that happens, you're at the end. The Jews, that includes me, will return to Israel. Every single one. And after the Messiah comes, those that were unable to return to Israel and who perished, there's a whole thing in the Kabbalah about it where the body will rule underground all the way until it gets to Israel. Okay? Parable, metaphor, we shall see. I believe it to be legit. And at some point, whether it's right away, whether it's 100 years later, whether it's 7 years later, or 1,000 years later, there will be a resurrection of the righteous. That is 100% sure. God will reign. Everything will end up being in Israel. That's where the battle starts. That's where the battle ends. A third temple will be built. All prophecies seem to say that it will be coming out of the sky. It will be God himself that already has the Beis HaMikdash, as we call in Hebrew, Beit HaMikdash, is already in the sky waiting to come down. And it will blow away anything beautiful that we saw from the previous temples, or we could even possibly imagine. Okay? And all nations, everyone that is left, that has not been destroyed, will bow to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel, the one and only true God, Hashem HaKadosh, Melech HaOlam, Melech Israel, the creator of everything in existence. This we know. Okay? That is for sure. We can all pretty much agree on that God will reign, evil will be destroyed completely. Even at that, by the way, there are differing opinions, whether it's from Torah, Kabbalah, New Testament, where there are some estimations that the devil won't be destroyed right away, but he'll be banished for another 1,000 years, be allowed to come back. And this is a very New Testament thing, by the way. And then he will be destroyed. There are other opinions that right away when the Mashiach comes, when the Messiah comes, all evil will be completely destroyed right away. But even at that, the Messianic era takes time. It won't go from here to here right away, where we're eating, we're picking food off of the trees and we're flying around almost like angels. It's not instantaneous. That is for sure. We don't know exactly how long that will take. The question is, when is it coming? What we do know from Torah, it has to be before 6,000 years, and we're almost there. We're in year 5,780 something right now. Okay, worst case scenario, and it won't be a worst case scenario because there's been enough good people and righteous people that it will be before that. I believe it's coming soon. Okay, very soon. Okay, in fact, I would say for the majority of us here, it will be in our lifetime. probably sooner rather than later. At least I hope so. Now, before I get on how to prepare, I want to add a couple of things. We also know, for anyone who's seen the movie 10 Commandments, you have a little bit of an idea of the miracle that Hashem, that God himself did when he used Moses to take the Hebrews out of Egypt. There are different schools of thought. We know at the very least we will see the same miracles, the same incredible miracles, but there are other teachings in Kabbalah that explain that what we saw, what we witnessed when God took the Hebrews out of Egypt, you're talking about the sun not coming up for 3 days. You're talking about God splitting the sea. You're talking about all the different plagues, the destruction of the firstborn Egyptians. Incredible, incredible miracles. What we learn in many of the prophecies and the teachings is that will be like child's play compared to what God will be doing in the Messianic era. So just to give you a little bit of an idea. Now, very important, we're going to get back to how to prepare, okay? But even though we don't know, let me just say this, even though we don't know exactly, and we're not supposed to, it's actually written nowhere as to the exact timing as to when the Messiah will come. And this will, we've already escalated. We are in the end of days. We're in Armageddon. The spiritual battle's been going on for a long time. The physical battle has started. It's going to be getting a lot worse. And I know a lot of people tell me, yeah, but the more good we do, and yes, the more good we do, the more we do for God, the more kindness we show, the more we fight evil. We're kind of putting it off, but at the same time, it has to happen. It will happen. It's written. Okay, and unfortunately, we had an opportunity over the last few thousand years to be able to have the Messiah come in peace, and humanity dropped the ball. We screwed up pretty bad. So unfortunately, it's no longer you see the Rebbe, the gentleman on that side behind me, for those of you watching, okay, he was asked, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was asked, will there be another Holocaust? Will there be a third world war? Will there be destruction and desolation as it says in the Torah? And his answer was very interesting many, many, many years ago. His answer was, doesn't have to be. Depends on us. He said, I've done everything I can do. The rest is up to you. Well, it doesn't take an Einstein to look around at humanity, okay, and realize that we didn't do what we were supposed to do. Everything is backwards. More and more people turned away from God and went to the other side, unfortunately, whether knowingly or unknowingly. If you're not for God, unfortunately, there's only one other place you go to. And I see a comment. Danielle mentions Jesus said no one knows about the Father. I just said that exactly. None of us know exactly when that time will come. Okay, and that's for sure. Okay, well, Rob, thank you for paying attention to my work. I do the work I do for people like you, for the people that I can help, the people that I can make a difference for. And that's why I do these videos as well. So thank you very much. So we're going to get into how to prepare. Okay. I've been talking for almost 20 minutes. Let me talk 5-10 minutes about how to prepare. And then we're going to start. Hi, Ernestine. Hi. And then we're going to talk about question and answers, because I look forward, as I said. Je vais réécouter Marjo, pas de problème. En rediffusion, c'est toujours sur mon Facebook, toujours ici sur YouTube. Même quand le live finit, c'est toujours là. Okay? Today, oh la la, faster. I don't even know what that is. Okay, so whatever. There's some nonsense that I see on the chat. I don't even know. I won't pay attention. Number one, what do we do to prepare? Step one, we go back to God, the Father, for those that are Christian that are watching this. Step one, if you already believe in God, work on your faith, believe harder. If your faith is strong, make it stronger. If you already pray, pray harder, with more sincerity, and more often. If you're not a believer in God, now's a good time to become one. Okay? Now's a good time to start. Because we're taught that Mashiach, the Messiah, can come at any moment. Okay? Any moment. The Messiah can come anytime. Jesus himself said that the Messiah can appear like a thief in the night when you don't expect it. Tomorrow, going back to God could be too late. When the Messiah comes, everyone's going to want to go back to God. Well, I mean, a lot of people won't believe in the Messiah. But at the end of the day, when everything is done and it's clear that the Messiah is here and who it is, it will be very easy for people to believe when you see miracles that have never been seen before in the history of mankind. You have to go back to God before. That's step one. Okay? Step two, not even to get political, but you have to make sure that you support the right groups. The road to hell was paved with good intentions, right? We know that. So make sure that you're supporting who you need to support, okay? Read the Bible. Make sure you understand what groups, nations, and people you should be supporting versus the ones that you shouldn't be. Very, very important. We won't get political right now. Okay, just remember the quote from the Old Testament. I bless those that blesseth my people, and I curse those that curseth my people. When God curses you, it's a big problem. I can promise you that. The Torah is very clear that although your first line of defense in preparation and your last line of defense and pretty much most of your battle plan is prayer and faith in God, the Torah is also very, very clear that the same way God created the world and physicality, and he works miracles through the world, the same way he uses me to do the exorcisms and to help people, okay? We also need to prepare physically. It's not enough just prayer. The Kabbalah is also very, very clear about that. Prayer is not enough. You start with prayer, you end with prayer. You have to have an extreme faith in God to the point you're willing to die for God if need be. To not, as Jesus himself said, never deny the Father's name. Be willing to die rather than deny the Father's name. Okay? Very important. But you need to prepare physically. And yes, I get it. When your faith in God is extreme, you have nothing to fear. That being said, we are told we have to prepare physically. What does that mean, prepare physically? I'm not a master prepper, so to speak. I have an idea what to do. Okay, I don't live in the mountains off the land, but it doesn't take a genius to know that there's a few things that you should do for you and your family when things are going to start to really escalate. In fact, feel free to even start now. You need supplies, whether it be water, whether it be canned goods, whether it be extra blankets, first aid kits, ways to start fire, gasoline. Someone who absolutely needs medication, if you can actually do so, stock up on as much medication as you can, because there'll be a point where you absolutely will not have access to it. Extra socks, if you live like I do in a cold climate, extra boots, gloves, blankets. If you're someone who's able to make fires or you have a fireplace, extra wood. Prepare something else that is absolutely essential. Because without the following, and I'm going to be careful what I say here, but without the following, it doesn't matter how many supplies you have. Without the following, it's going to mean nothing. And I'm going to explain to you. We've all seen movies, shows, and we kind of have an idea about what's going to happen. Kind of like that zombie apocalypse type of thing. I think we kind of saw it with a bunch of people walking around with diapers on their face for a few years, even outdoors by themselves or driving alone in their car. There's still people who do so. To me, that's worse than a zombie. Okay? The zombies aren't supposed to have a brain. These people are supposed to. Okay? Maybe not. But we all have an idea. We've seen what happened, right? With the whole sea, people were fighting each other for toilet paper. Never mind, not food for their family. As long as they had enough toilet paper, they were happy, which was mind-boggling. But imagine in a real catastrophe where there is no food on the shelves. Electricity has been cut. Water's been cut. Now you have supplies. What happens for those who have supplies versus those who don't? The people that don't, what are they going to want to do? Take your supplies. So this is where I'm going to say this in a careful way. Okay? Take this however you want. And I'm going to be very, very clear because this is YouTube. I'm not advocating violence in any way, shape, or form. I'm not advocating anything illegal in any way, shape, or form. I'm not offering medical advice. I'm not offering any self-defense advice. Again, it's YouTube. And hopefully within 2 months, guys, I'm going to have a private channel. We'll go over the details when the time comes where we'll be able to talk about whatever the heck we want to talk about with no censorship at all. But until then, I have to be a little bit careful here on YouTube. Whatever supplies you have, you need to be able to protect those supplies. You need to be able to protect yourself and your families. So if you have supplies and your neighbors don't, they're going to want to take it from you. What are you going to do to make sure that they can't? I'm going to leave it at that. And I think that's the smartest thing that I can do. So that's how you prepare God. And then you prepare physically by getting supplies, trying to be as self-sufficient as you can. If you have a lot of land and you're able to grow your own food and you have a water well, so much even better. Most of us don't. Okay? Do the best that you can, but start preparing now and find ways that you're able to protect what it is that you have, or others will come and take it, unfortunately. Okay? So I think I'll end there. I've been speaking for almost a half an hour, and I'd like to believe it was interesting enough. Okay? But I would be very interested to start taking questions. J'ai fini ce que j'ai à dire concernant les fins de jour, Armageddon. Puis, je suis prêt à prendre des questions. Et comme je dis, les questions en français, je vais répondre en français. Well, you're right, Mel. Having a private channel is going to be awesome. Train, yes, Simon's mentioning something there. I'm seeing a comment. Train, we have to walk. Walk. If you're able to run, do a little bit of jogging. I've been going back to the gym. Just be physical. Be more physically active than you have been, because if you're doing absolutely nothing, okay? Hi, Francesca. If you're doing absolutely nothing physically, and it comes to a time where you need to get out fast and you don't have access to a car or transportation, it's going to be a shock to the system. It's going to be a big shock to the system. So yes, you absolutely need to be prepared physically. And if that means starting to go to the gym, at least walking every single day, even if it's 10, 15 minutes, if you're not used to doing it, you're going to see a massive, massive difference. Okay. A comment from Zaz, according to Pierre Gilbert. I don't know who Pierre Gilbert is. As soon as there's local peace agreement signed for Israel, it will be the beginning of tribulations. The Torah and Kabbalah say something different. It's not that simple, because there's different peace agreements. There have to be different players involved. There's going to be a false Messiah, what we call a false Mashiach. There's going to be two good Mashiachs, the first one, and then the second one, which will be the main one. Okay. For you people, there'll be what you call the Antichrist, but there's going to be someone who's promoting the Antichrist, those who follow the Antichrist himself. So it's a lot more complicated when it comes to tribulation, revelation, the rapture. It's not so cut and dry. It's not because there's a peace deal that all of a sudden that's going to happen. That is not true. My first question here from my main paisan, Rob Racket Caraben. My question is, how close are we to the end times? The war that is going on right now would lead us to the end time. Well, that's a good question. I tried to touch upon it right before, Rob. It's impossible to know how close. In my feeling, my gut, the information I seem to get from above, I believe that we're close. Well, what is close? You know, sometimes I get messages from above where they tell me soon, and that soon can be 1 hour away. The soon could also be 3 years. I've seen soon be 3 to 4 years. So, in my estimation, do I believe that it will be within the next 20 years, if not the next 10 years? I do. I really, really do. Okay. But again, it's a process. The whole end times is not like starts today, ends tomorrow. The work could last. There's different opinions in the prophecies, and again, depending on the interpretation. But again, when you remember that, and that's why, whether it's me, that guy Pierre, whoever he is, or anyone else that is talking about the end of days, it's impossible to know, because the Torah, which is the Old Testament, the New Testament, and especially Kabbalah, which is the deepest, most esoteric writings that exist in any universe, never mind just ours, they're all in parables and metaphors, stories. So it's impossible to be 100% sure, Rob. But we've definitely, as I've said it before, I've already discussed it, we've been escalating towards this point. The battle is absolutely escalating. It's getting more intense. Even the exorcisms that I've been doing. 10 years ago, if I did 20 exorcisms, 1 out of 20 would be like the type of thing that I post as a video. And by the way, there is going to be one coming in the next 2 weeks. It's going to be absolutely intense, with testimony from my client herself. Okay. So stay tuned for that. Okay. Now, 10 years later, 2, sometimes even 3 or 4 exorcisms are insane. I think in the last 10 that I've done, I think it was even 5 or 6 of them that were video worthy, so to speak, to use that expression. So things are definitely escalating. So Rob, we're getting closer and closer. That much I will tell you. Absolutely. What we're living in right now is clearly, we're already in the beginning of the end of days. Now, how long that will last? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, 10, 20? We're not sure. Patty, what is the definition of the lake of fire? Who will go to the lake of fire? Well, so the lake of fire, again, there's different versions. The lake of fire is a very Christian concept, a New Testament concept. In the Torah and in Kabbalah, it's referred to as Gehenna, okay, Gehenna, or Gehenna, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And in essence, it's hell. Okay? And that is pretty much the lake of fire. Now, there are different versions, there are different levels. Yes, people will experience it in different ways. Who will go? That's a little bit more complicated, Patty. Every single one of us will be judged by the heavenly court. And God appoints angels to judge us. I'm not on that heavenly court. I'm not a judge. One thing that I can tell you is almost any sin, not all, okay, almost any, but not all, we can repent. Okay? We can repent. And if we repent before the Messiah comes, we can avoid that. Now, no matter how holy we are or how holy we think we are, the soul goes through a little cleansing once we pass. That's for sure. It won't be the lake of fire, but needs to be purified before it goes back to the Father, goes back to the Creator from whence it came, okay? Ideally, the best way to make sure to avoid that lake of fire, number one sure way to get into that lake of fire is idol worship. Okay? But I have news for many Christians, and it's a conversation I have with many of my clients who are Catholic. Worshipping a cross is idol worship. It's a piece of wood or a piece of metal. Worshipping a saint is idol worship. Right? God says in the commandments. And by the way, next week, I do believe my life will be focused on the 10 commandments. So I don't want to say too much now, but I've discussed it before. The first commandment is there are no gods other than me. And the second commandment, thou shalt not commit idolatry. That's the English translation, more or less. Okay. So the most sure way to avoid the lake of fire, be a good person, pray to God, directly God, avoid idol worship, and try to do good. And that's a sure way to avoid the lake of fire. Okay. Jonathan, le Messie sera bon ou pas? Ben, comme je viens de dire, Jonathan, le vrai Messie, le vrai Mashiach, comme on dit en hébreu, sera bon, sera envoyé par Dieu. Mais il y aura des faux savants. Et c'est ça le problème. Et la plupart du monde, c'est déjà écrit dans les prophéties, la plupart de l'humanité va croire les faux Messies et pas le vrai Messie. Et ça, c'est un problème. Alors, le vrai Messie, oui, ça serait bon. On va avoir la paix, il n'y aura aucun mal, aucune maladie. Quand le Messie a là juste du bonheur, de l'amour, de la joie, tout le monde, aider tout le monde. Mais il y aura des fausses, il y aura des mauvais qui sont envoyés par le diable avant. Isabel, do you believe in rapture? That's a good question. I don't know if you just joined us, Isabel, or you've been listening since the beginning. I did mention rapture. The Torah and the Kabbalistic writings have a different view than the Christian view of rapture. Okay, there's no such thing in Torah or Kabbalah about 144,000. That number is not mentioned at all. There is no concept of people in Torah and Kabbalah being lifted up to the sky. Okay, as a Christian would say to me, Jesus, as he's coming down, because that's obviously who Christians believe is the Messiah. This concept doesn't exist in the Torah and the Old Testament, which, by the way, Jesus himself used to preach. The Old Testament prophecies don't speak about that. In fact, it even says that throughout history, what God will sometimes do for the righteous is if he sees they're about to sin, he may sometimes bring them back home before their time. But the concept of a rapture in Judaism does not exist. Now, do I personally believe in rapture? I have my own view upon it. I believe that there will be some that will be protected by God, that won't have to go through, or at least won't go through at the same level, the desolation, the destruction, the tribulations that most people will go through. Do I believe that there will be people that will magically go up into the sky to meet a Messiah coming down? Not in that way, no. I believe in my own version of rapture. And again, I understand for Christians that that's what rapture is. But when you realize that Jesus himself was a Jew, Jesus was a rabbi, and Jesus was a Kabbalist, a big-time Kabbalist, and he used the Old Testament to preach. You know, you have to understand, like I said, even from the beginning, the New Testament, as well as even the Old Testament of Kabbalah, is filled with parables and metaphors. And if you take everything literally, you're going to be disappointed. So, and even if we take what you're saying as fact, that the rapture will happen exactly as such, there's over 8 billion people on the planet. To be part of the 144,000, luck is probably not with most of us. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Great question, thank you. Manon, do you think it is related to the 2030 agenda? That's a fantastic question, Manon. And the answer, from my point of view, and again, this is my opinion, of course, it's actually yes and no. Everything that the New World Order, everything that the people in power, and we know the devil's infiltrated, we know that evil is pretty much running almost every government and organization right now. Okay, they've infiltrated religion. They infiltrated religion a long, long time ago. One needs to simply look at the Vatican and have a clear idea of who's running the show over there. It's not, unfortunately, it's not good. Okay, everything evil does, there's a point to it. And they're trying to counteract what God is doing. Okay, and when you realize that everything that they're doing, the devil knows he's going to lose. He understands that God wins this battle. It's been written. Okay, God created the devil. He knows exactly what's going on. So he's going to try to take as many with him as possible. He's going to bring down as many as he can with him. In other words, keep as many souls away from God as he can. Therefore, that being said, evil knows what they're doing, and every agenda that they have is trying to push things a certain way. It's funny that the 2030 agenda, where they come up with the number 2030 and not 2020 or 2025 or 2028 or 2035. I mean, at the same time, they have so many different agendas with different numbers. Do I believe that it can be related? Yes, because evil also understands that good is fighting back and that there is a movement and that God's people are not simply going to lay down and take it. So yes, I do believe to a limited extent that Agenda 2030 is related to the end times. Yes. Magical specimen. Do you feel that the last Antichrist is among us already? No, I don't. The thing is that the same way that in every generation, a good question, by the way, the same way that we're taught in Torah and in Kabbalah, that in every generation, there is a potential Mashiach, a potential Messiah. And it's very complicated, so I don't want to go too deep into it. I've probably spoken about it before. But the person that represents the Messiah, our souls, reincarnation exists. Our souls have been here many times. And furthermore, the Messiah will be more than just one soul in one. I'll tell you that much. So that being said, the Messiah can appear like that. Do I believe that the potential Messiah is here waiting? Yes, potentially. But we're also taught in Torah that the Messiah can come out of the sky, as our Christians taught that, Jesus will come out of the sky, right? So during the rapture. Do I believe the last Antichrist is here? Not necessarily. There are some that are already here potentially. But I do believe that there are more coming, in the same way that the Messiah can kind of appear out of thin air, so to speak. Well, so can the devil can do magic. So he can make the more antichrists and those that support him kind of appear out of thin air as well. So no, I don't believe the last one is here. I do believe that some of them, or rather their tools, are here already, absolutely. But I believe there's more coming, sadly and unfortunately. Does the Antichrist live in Europe? Vicarious Day, if you know what I mean. So the Torah, and again, based on my understanding, I'm not the top scholar in the world of the Torah or the Kabbalah. Okay, and I don't claim to be by any stretch of the imagination in any way, shape, or form. But both the Messiah and the false Messiah, or what you would call the Antichrist, are supposed to come out of Israel, and if not the very least, the Middle East. Okay? Now, keep something in mind too, that there's more than one version of an Antichrist. Technically, a false Messiah can be cash if it's being worshipped, or AI. Okay? Or if there were a fake alien invasion, as I keep warning people is coming at some point soon enough, worshiping them would be like a false Messiah. So it's a lot more complicated than just one person showing up, people bowing down to and worshiping. There's many different things here, and there's an escalation of false messiahs, so to speak. Do I believe that he lives in Europe? Potentially. Okay. But what we learn in Torah and in Kabbalah, that the Antichrist, so to speak, the false Mashiach, and the two good Mashiachs, because as I mentioned, there will be two, with the second one being the final one, that they are supposed to come from the Middle East, and that the Mashiach, the two good Mashiachs will absolutely be Hebrew, from the Hebrew tribe. Okay. My fratello Anthony, do you believe that angels will come amongst us and provide us weapons to combat the evil side? That's a great question, Anthony. I wish I could answer in the affirmative. I wish I could tell you yes. Unfortunately, I don't believe that that's going to be the case. There will be angels doing battle on behalf of God. There will be angels doing battle next to the Messiah. There will be some righteous that will be there in the last battle, the last physical battle that will destroy evil once and for all. But those humans that will be there in that last battle will be few and far between. Will they have weapons given to them by angels and the Messiah? Yes. Okay. Absolutely. But it's few and far between. So the average human, unfortunately, the average out of the 8 billion here, most people are not going to be handed weapons by the Messiah or the angels. Right now, the weapon that each and every one of us does have, and we have to focus on what we do have right now, Anthony, is we have the ability to have our faith in God and to pray to God. And we have the knowledge to start preparing for what's coming. And as I said, how do we prepare? We start with our faith and prayer to God, and then we prepare physically. So I wish it was that simple that, 8 billion people. The problem is that most people idol worship. Most people who think they're with God are not actually for God. Most people who think they're doing good with good intentions are actually doing evil and helping the devil. So when you consider that the prophecies are very clear, there's going to be a very small percentage left at the end that have a place in the world to come. Unfortunately, 8 billion people won't be walking around with angelic swords to fight evil. I wish that would be the case. Unfortunately, it's not, but that's a great question. Thank you. Zaza, si je rêve qu'un démon veut entrer et que j'arrive à le faire sortir en priant le Notre Père par 3 fois avant de l'expliquer en criant par ma bouche. Merci pour la question, mais ce n'est pas pour ce live-là, Zaza. Ce live-là, on focus sur les derniers jours, Armageddon, révélation, tribulation, Gog et Magog. Alors, c'est une bonne question, mais c'est pas pour maintenant. Je vais focus sur les questions où on parle du dernier jour. Puis, mais c'est une bonne question, mais c'est juste pas pour le sujet de ce soir. Je m'excuse. Next question. Okay, I see one here. There hasn't been the one posted at the... there we go. Peux-tu élaborer un peu sur l'Antichrist et l'Antichrist? Well, you put l'Antichrist 2 fois. Les deux doivent arriver avant le Messie. Ben, juste, Simon, n'importe quel faux Messie, Antichrist, doit arriver avant le Messie. C'est déjà écrit dans le Torah, dans l'Ancien Testament et dans le Nouveau Testament, qu'il y aura des faux avant. Ça, c'est sûr. Qui exactement? On ne sait pas. Ça se peut, comme je dis aussi, que ce soit des objets. OK? Ça soit peut-être des extraterrestres. Quelqu'un qui prie à une idole. Ben, l'idole, en effet, est actuellement un antichrist. OK? Pour ceux qui prient à des saints ou des statues ou des rosaries, des choses de même, ce sont techniquement des antichrists ou des faux messies, spécialement pour ceux qui croient en Jésus. Alors, on ne sait pas beaucoup, mais on sait qu'il y aura le diable qui est le chef des marionnettes, puis il y aura un antichrist, un top antichrist qui travaille pour lui, puis il y aura des plus bas antichrists en bas de lui, qui ne sont pas aussi puissants. Et il y aura ceux qui sont comme des gérants du marketing pour l'antichrist. Okay? Ceux qui poussent l'agenda de l'antichrist. Alors ça, je peux te dire. OK? Mais plus que ça, c'est très compliqué de savoir. Alors, merci pour la question, Simon. Next question. Let's see what's coming up next here. As I see a few questions there in the chat. There we go. Tous les gens qui ne croient pas en Jésus vont-ils aller au ciel? Pareil, il y en a beaucoup sur la terre qui ne croient pas, je pense. Ben encore, c'est une bonne question, mais si on comprend en premier que je dois le redire, écoute, moi, je crois en Jésus. Je suis juif. Je travaille avec lui. Je l'ai connu avant. Je lui connais maintenant. Alors, je crois en lui dans ce sens-là. OK? Mais ce que Jésus avait dit actuellement, puis ça a été changé en 100 ans, que Jésus lui-même n'a pas écrit le Nouveau Testament. Jésus a jamais dit le livre de mon Père, l'Ancien Testament que moi-même j'utilise pour parler au monde, c'est plus bon. Allez-y, créez un autre livre. En s'entend, Jésus a jamais dit une niaiserie de même. Alors, ce sont les apôtres, avec leur interprétation, qui ont commencé à écrire. Puis après, c'est l'Église qui a décidé quoi garder, quoi changer. Alors, quand tu comprends déjà que ce que Jésus a déjà dit a été complètement changé, ce qu'il a vraiment dit, c'est si tu veux arriver au Père, tu dois écouter mes mots. Quand il a dit « Through me, you will get to the Father », ce qu'il voulait dire, mon Père m'a envoyé pour vous donner, pour vous dire quoi faire, pour être sûr que vous avez une place dans le monde qui s'en vient. Est-ce qu'il y aura du monde qui ne croit pas en Jésus, qui va être dans le ciel? 100%. Parce qu'on s'entend pour le judaïsme, Jésus pour le judaïsme n'est pas important. Pour les musulmans, même à ça, Jésus était considéré un prophète, pas plus que ça. Alors, c'est sûr et certain que la plupart du monde sur la terre ne croit pas nécessairement en Jésus. Mais ce qui est important, c'est croire en Dieu le Père. OK? Ça, c'est important, de croire au Père, Dieu direct, Dieu qui a créé le Fils, Jésus. Dieu qui a créé tout l'univers. Dieu qui a créé tout. Même Jésus priait à son Père. Abba Beshamayim, il disait, Papa dans le ciel. Alors, quand tu comprends ça, tu comprends ce qui est beaucoup plus important, c'est avoir la foi et les prières à Dieu lui-même. Jésus lui-même priait à son Père. Il donnait au monde l'exemple. Alors, il y a beaucoup du monde qui sont des bonnes personnes, qui prient à Dieu, qui ont la foi en Dieu, qui fait beaucoup du bon sur la terre. Et je connais beaucoup de monde qui a prié à Jésus qui ne sont pas nécessairement du bon monde. Alors, même si eux autres prient à Jésus, ils ne sont pas du bon monde, je te garantis, il n'aura pas une place dans le monde qui s'en vient. Ça, c'est sûr et certain. Je dirais même, il y a une grande partie qui ne seront pas là. Mais merci beaucoup pour la question. Marie-Christine, if every Jew returns to Israel when the Armageddon will happen, what about the others, such as Canadians or Americans? When you mean others, are you referring to non-Jews, or are you referring to Jews that will be staying in Canada or the United States? I'm not really sure, but I'm going to answer either way. First of all, we're supposed to return. Not everyone will make it. And it's pretty clear that what's going to happen outside the land of Israel in the last battle in Armageddon, most of the world will be destroyed, and that includes most of the people that are outside the land of Israel. Even inside the land of Israel, half of it will be destroyed. Okay? So what's going to happen? That's why we need to prepare. And it's not because we go back to Israel that it means that we're safe. Unfortunately not. But the whole concept, and like I said, there is a very big Kabbalistic concept where potentially the first people that will rise will be those buried in Israel, and those righteous that were buried outside of the land of Israel will have to roll underground to get there. And I don't know how long that's going to take. I've never tried, nor do I think I really want to. Because when the Messiah comes and the righteous are resurrected, the last body that we had, because we have been here many times, the last body that we had will be the one that we're put into, but we'll be like younger, we'll be at our best. And he says regarding Adam and Eve, it was if they were 20 years old. Okay, so we would be at our healthiest, our most fit. But it will be the same body that will be reconstructed by God for our neshama, for our soul to come back into. So thank you for the question. What will happen when the 7 trumpets of Revelation are blown? So again, Patty, this is it's a good question. There's a difference in what the Old Testament and the New Testament say. For us, it's something that is called a shofar, which is a ram's horn. Okay. I'm assuming that is what is meant by the trumpets. It won't be a musical trumpet. It will be what's called a shofar, the ram's horn that will be blown. For us, what we do know, what's written in the Torah prophecies and what Kabbalah speaks about, is that everywhere in the world, the heavens will shake with the sound of the shofar to announce the Messiah's arrival. Okay? That the mountains will quake. The heavens will shake. Now, the Christians have the concept of the 7 trumpets of Revelation. Either way you look at it, and like I said at the beginning of this live, I like to focus on the things that we do have in common. Okay? Because at the end of the day, there's different ways to say it, different ways to view things, different interpretations. And as I mentioned, since everything is a metaphor and a parable, or much of it is, the exact explanation isn't possible. Okay? What we do know, if we're focusing on what we have in common, is that at some point, whether it's your 7 trumpets or whether it's one massive shofar, ram's horn that is being blown from the heavens to shake the earth, just know that the Messiah is here, and you can be sure that shit's about to get very, very real in a good way. Huguette, question sensible. Doit-on être prêt à prendre les armes pour se protéger quand tout va chavirer? Je ne vois pas faire ça. Ben, Huguette, comme j'ai dit, peut-être si tu comprends l'anglais, puis je pense que tu ne comprends pas l'anglais, j'avais dit avant que je dois faire attention à ce que je dis sur YouTube. Je ne suis pas quelqu'un de violent. Ce que j'ai dit avant en anglais, puis je vais dire maintenant, quand on se prépare, c'est important pour être capable de protéger nous-mêmes et nos familles. Si on a de l'eau, si on a de la bouffe mis à côté, si on a toutes sortes d'affaires, des blanquettes, des bas, des manteaux, n'importe quoi, pour se préparer, parce qu'éventuellement, il n'y aura plus dans les magasins pour acheter, alors on doit se préparer. C'est important d'être capable de protéger tout ça, parce que tous ceux qui n'ont pas vont vouloir prendre de ceux qui ont. Alors, comme j'ai dit, je ne vais jamais dire à quelqu'un d'aller acheter des armes. Ce que je vais dire, c'est que moi, j'en ai parce que j'ai une licence, alors j'ai des armes légales, toujours légales. Je ne les utilise pas, juste pour aller au gun range, OK, pour pratiquer quelque chose de même. Je ne suis pas quelqu'un de violent. Mais pour ceux qui n'ont pas une licence, qui n'ont aucune manière à te protéger, c'est chose que je vais dire, tu dois faire ce que tu peux faire pour toi et ta famille. C'est tout ce que je vais dire. Puis, tu as dit, Huguette, que tu n'es pas nécessairement sûr que tu es prêt à faire ce que tu as à faire pour te protéger. Je prie pour toi parce que avec ce qui s'en vient, si tu n'es pas prêt à faire ce que tu dois faire pour toi et ta famille, il y a un problème, mon ami. OK? Dieu lui-même nous dit de préparer. Dans les prophéties, ça dit, commence à préparer, sois prête pour qu'est-ce qui s'en vient. Non seulement c'est important de le faire, c'est un devoir devant Dieu. Si tu n'es pas prête à faire n'importe quoi pour protéger toi, ta famille, tu ne fais pas le travail de Dieu. Je vais laisser ça avec toi, OK? Martine, il faut penser aux indigènes qui ne connaissent pas son existence. Indigène, c'est quoi? Indigenous, c'est ça?
Yeah.
Ben, en premier, Martine, je vais te corriger sur quelque chose, mon ami. Les indigènes, souvent, connaissaient mieux Dieu que la plupart du monde qui existe maintenant. Ils connaissent l'existence de Dieu. Pour eux autres, ils appelaient Dieu le grand esprit, Gichimanitou, le grand esprit dans le ciel. OK? En effet, les Amérindiens comprenaient beaucoup plus qui était Dieu que la plupart du monde maintenant qui se prend pour des religieux. Alors, je ne pense pas que je dois penser aux indigènes sur ça. La plupart, peut-être maintenant, il y a beaucoup qui sont perdus. Je s'entends comme la plupart de l'humanité est perdue avec le bullshit de nouvel âge puis des niaiseries de même, OK, au lieu de Dieu. Mais au moins les anciens, les Amérindiens dans le passé, eux autres comprenaient c'était qui Dieu. Ils priaient tout le temps au grand esprit dans le ciel. Alors, eux autres, ils sachent très bien c'est qui Dieu. I have a bad connection. I don't know why. Can God send a message in a dream to let you know when the Armageddon is near? When you say you have a bad connection, what are you talking about, Ernestine? You have a bad connection on this live? Your internet is down, or you have a bad connection to God? No one has a bad connection to God, if that's what you mean. Can God send a message when Armageddon is near? Not yes and no. God, listen, I'm telling you, yes, I know I call myself Jared Heaven's messenger. I'm not God's representative here on earth. I don't claim to be. I'm not God's main prophet over here. I don't claim to be. But I'm telling you, prepare. And I'm telling you, Armageddon is near. Okay? We see signs all around us. When you see things that are happening in this world, it's a clear sign, a clear symbol that Armageddon is near. Everything is backwards. What used to be right is now wrong, and vice versa. Okay, what used to be moral is now considered wrong, and what used to be immoral is being paraded around like it's a fantastic thing. Okay, it's being championed. So those are signs. God sends us signs every day in nature. He sends us signs via people. He sends us signs via animals. We see signs everywhere. Will he let you know when the exact timing of the Messiah is coming? No, we just discussed it. No one but God himself knows that. Okay? That being said, we do know based on what we see, God has given us enough signs that Armageddon is upon us. That much I can tell you. Thank you for the question. Caro, simple. Est-ce que tu es vraiment simple, Caro? À la fin des temps, les bons resteront sur la terre où ils vont quitter pour aller vers une autre terre. Ben, c'est un peu comme la madame a demandé en anglais avant, OK, avec le Rapture. D'après moi, non. Les bons qui resteront, tu veux dire quand tout est fini, ou on parle de comme la rapture avant? Si on parle de après, les bons resteront ici parce que Dieu va emmener le monde qui s'en vient sur terre. Il a créé la terre pour nous, pour les humains. Alors, il va emmener le spirituel, le jardin d'Éden, sur terre. Puis les bons qui restent seraient ici, avec le monde qui s'en vient. Ceux qui sont morts, qui étaient des bons, vont revenir ici sur terre. Bonne question. Manon, if rapture is real and if I'm captured, but not my family, what will happen to them? Will they understand where I am gone? What they have to do to get captured too? Well, again, very good question, Manon. Again, the Torah, the Old Testament, which is almost 3,800 years old. And again, I repeat, which is the book that Jesus himself used to preach. Okay. And from what the New Testament, there's a reason it's called New Testament, because it comes from the Old Testament and they just added stuff to it. So it is this concept of the rapture. And again, I believe it's real in a limited sense. I don't believe 144,000 people or 100,000 people or 44,000 or even 10,000 for that matter will just pop up in the sky to meet Jesus on his way down for the battle. I don't believe it's going to happen like that. There's absolutely no indication whatsoever in Torah or the Kabbalistic writings of anything even close or similar to that in any way, shape, or form. Now, if it would be real, just to answer your question, for those who do believe that it is real, what will happen to them? Well, first of all, if they don't believe in God, they probably wouldn't even know what rapture, tribulation, revelation, Armageddon, or the end of days is. So will they know what's going on? Probably not. If they have a bit of an idea of what's going on and they realize that, you're rising up into the sky, I think they're going to have a pretty good idea that they're screwed. Okay, because essentially, anyways, whether we're righteous or not, we're all going to suffer down here with what's coming. There's no magical pill that we could take and say, well, we're with God. Great. We're good. Nothing bad's going to happen to us. Some of the most righteous people throughout history have suffered. That includes what we call Avraham Avinu, our forefather Abraham, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. Okay? For you Christians, Jesus. My God, can we say Jesus suffered? And I have stigmata, so I have a little bit of an idea of how he suffered. Okay? So the most, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Sarah, Abraham's wife, they all suffered in their own ways. Job, who was a holy man, lost nothing. He lost everything at one point. So some of the holiest people and prophets, the apostles, were all tortured and murdered except for one, and even he was tortured and banished. Again, we saw what happened to Jesus. Most of the prophets were hunted down, many of them slaughtered. So if it happened to them, if there's anyone watching this right now who thinks that they're righteous enough that they will avoid potentially what's coming, it's going to be a real rude awakening for a lot of people. I'll tell you that much. Is talking to God and reading the Bible considered as praying? Yes. In fact, reading the Bible, it's not really considered praying. But if you're doing, like in certain prayer books, or certain books such as Psalms of David, for example, if you read those, it is considered praying. In fact, David wrote it as a prayer, as a meditative prayer, so to speak, to connect to God. If you're speaking to God, you don't need a book, Simon, to pray. It helps. For a lot of people, they feel comfortable using a guideline to pray. Okay. I do it from time to time. I used to be religious, so I know the prayer book fairly well. But talking to God is prayer. That is prayer. When you are speaking to God Almighty, the Father, the Creator, the King, you are praying. Now, is reading the Bible considered prayer? Not necessarily. Reading certain parts of the Bible, it's a fine line, can be considered somewhat prayer. But even if it's not considered prayer, reading the Bible is fantastic. Okay, we learn that reading the Torah, studying the Torah, rereading it, reading Kabbalah, studying Kabbalah, trying to understand it, is considered one of the holiest things that you can do. So if you're talking to God and you're reading the Bible, you're on the right track, my friend. I'll tell you that much. You're certainly not doing bad by doing that. You're helping yourself greatly. So keep it up and God bless. Caro, quand tu dis d'être d'un bon côté, j'aimerais savoir quel est le bon côté et pourquoi le mauvais est mauvais, parce que je vois tellement de bon et mauvais dans n'importe quel endroit ou religion. Pas sûr exactement ton question, c'est un peu compliqué. D'être le bon, j'aimerais savoir quel est le bon côté, pourquoi le mauvais est mauvais, parce que Écoute, si tu es une bonne personne, Caro, et oublie ce que tu vois dans religion. Religion, en premier, Dieu et religion ne sont pas nécessairement la même chose. Ça, c'est numéro 1. OK? Et le monde a fait une grande faute quand il a tourné de religion. La plupart du monde ont tourné de Dieu, puis on voit qu'est-ce qui est arrivé avec le nouvel âge. OK? Dieu et religion ne sont pas nécessairement la même chose, numéro 1. Numéro 2, il y a des bonnes choses dans la religion, mais il y a des mauvaises personnes qui réclament d'être religieux. Alors, tout ce que tu dois savoir, tu demandes c'est quoi le bon, c'est quoi le mauvais. Ben, Dieu est bon, le diable est mauvais. Okay? Si tu pries à Dieu et tu as une foi extrême en Dieu, c'est bon. Si tu fais des bons gestes, c'est bon. Si tu aides des autres, c'est bon. Fais ces choses-là, prie tous les jours, à une foi en Dieu, c'est bon. Mais si tu parles de peut-être toi-même, je vais juste te dire un petit quelque chose dans ton affaire, puis on va vraiment pas discuter, mais tu dis Caro simple et authentique médium. J'ai déjà parlé dans les autres lives, qu'est-ce que ça prend pour faire un travail pour Dieu, pour connecter avec des esprits, des choses d'eux-mêmes. Fais attention parce que les médiums dans l'Ancien Testament et même dans le Nouveau Testament et dans le Kabbale, c'est magie noire et Dieu il dit que c'est pire que l'idolâtrie. Alors, juste pour laisser ça avec toi, fais très attention avec toi, ma chère Caro, parce que d'être médium, c'est considéré comme magie noire. Pour ceux qui sont capables, oui, je sais que moi, techniquement, je suis médium, je peux parler avec ceux qui sont passés. Je le fais très rarement, pas souvent. Je le fais quand c'est important de le faire. Je ne fais jamais pour le fun. Jamais. Puis même pour le faire, tu es supposé de connaître l'Ancien Testament et le Kabbale pour le faire. Alors, pour être sûr que tu es sur la bonne côté, je veux juste mentionner ça, mon ami, OK? Merci pour la question. Nicole, l'enlèvement, allons-nous disparaître ou enlever dans le ciel? Nicole, merci pour la question. J'ai parlé de ça 2-3 fois déjà. Peut-être tu viens juste d'arriver, je ne suis pas sûr. Je ne crois pas à ça. OK? C'est une affaire du Nouveau Testament, rien à faire dans l'Ancien Testament ou dans les Écritures kabbalistiques. Pour nous, ça existe pas quelque chose de même. Et même pour ceux qui croient à ça, on parle, il y a plus que 8 milliards du monde sur la Terre. Plus que 8 milliards. Puis ça monte tous les jours. Puis même pour les chrétiens qui croient à l'enlèvement, la rapture, on parle de 144 000 maximum. Alors, les chances pour la plupart de l'humanité n'est pas bonne. Merci pour la question. Brent, Psalm 23, by the way, my man, I don't know if you somehow were able to read my mind, but that's actually my favorite. Psalm 23 is my favorite. They're all good. I like to read them from time to time when I can. I'm actually gonna get back into that. When King David wrote them, he was inspired from above, by the way. It's a complicated Kabbalistic concept, but yes, Psalm 23 is a very good one. I know it's not a question and it's not necessarily related to the end of days, but at the same time it is. If you read it and you read between the lines, you know, when we need God, as we will in the end of days, and praying to God with devotion and passion and sincerity and tears, as King David did, that's related to the end of days. Frankie Chat, la seule prière que je récite est le Notre Père. Je lis la Bible, je ne comprends pas vraiment, mais je m'efforce, je parle beaucoup à Jésus ainsi qu'à Dieu. Ben, écoute, Frankie, le Notre Père est bon. Il y a beaucoup de chrétiens qui utilisent celui-là. Tu lis la Bible, même si tu ne comprends pas vraiment. Je peux te dire, pour l'Ancien Testament, on peut l'étudier toute notre vie et pas comprendre beaucoup. Et comme je dis, même le Nouveau Testament, c'était premièrement l'interprétation des apôtres. Ça a été changé plusieurs fois. Jésus parlait, il était kabbaliste, puis rabbin, il parlait tout le temps en parable et en métaphore. Alors, sois pas gêné si tu ne comprends pas la Bible, parce que la plupart du monde ne le comprend pas, même ceux qui l'étudient. Alors, continue. Puis toujours, écoute, c'est dur pour moi de dire à des chrétiens de ne pas parler à Jésus. Mais je vais répéter que Jésus lui-même parlait à Dieu, à son Père. Jésus priait à son Père tout le temps. Il faisait des guérissons, il faisait des exorcismes avant de reposer, avant de manger, avant de dormir. Il priait à Dieu, son Père. Daniel, je suis confus parce que j'ai appris que Dieu est Père, Fils et Esprit Saint, mystère de la Trinité. Que Jésus est Dieu le Fils. Et donc, prier Jésus, c'est prier Dieu. Quelles sont les lumières? Ben, comme j'ai déjà dit, Daniel, c'est une affaire chrétienne. Et je vais répéter, je viens juste de le dire. Et la raison que je réponds à ces questions-là, parce que les prières sont tellement importantes pour les fins des jours, the end of days, Armageddon. OK? C'est tellement important que je veux répondre à ces questions-là pour que le monde comprenne bien comment prier. On parle de Jésus. Jésus était un rabbin. Je répète, Jésus était un juif. Jésus était un hébreu. Jésus était en plus un kabbaliste. Jésus utilisait l'Ancien Testament. Ça n'existait pas le Nouveau Testament. Jésus n'a pas écrit le Nouveau Testament. Les apôtres ont écrit le Nouveau Testament. Ça a été pris par l'Église. Ils l'ont changé. Il y avait 30 différentes versions à un moment donné du Nouveau Testament. Même maintenant, il y a plusieurs différentes versions du Nouveau Testament. Différentes de sectes de christianité. OK? Alors, tu dois comprendre que si Jésus lui-même priait à son Père, il disait « Abba Beshamayim, Papa dans le ciel ». Il priait à son Père. Il nous donnait l'exemple. Puis tu dois comprendre, comme j'ai déjà dit, Daniel, le premier commandement, il n'y a aucun Dieu à part que moi. C'est pour ça que Jésus priait à lui. Jésus a jamais, jamais, jamais dit au monde, prie à moi. Jamais. C'est l'Église qui a fait ça, mais l'Église est pleine d'idolâtrie. L'Église te dit de prier au Saint, de prier à Marie, de prier aux statues, de prier à un croix en métal ou un croix en bois. L'Église te dit de prier à n'importe qui et quoi, sauf Dieu. Alors, je vais laisser ça avec toi. OK? And the complete apocrypha. Well, what is complete? There's a lot of things that are missing. Okay, so I'm not really sure what your question is there, Kat. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just missing it. But number one, what is complete to you? There is nothing that is complete, and I'm not sure what you're asking. So I'm sorry about that if I can't answer that question. Sorry, Tony, I can't give you a quick recap. I did almost 30 minutes of a recap of speaking about that. But this live will be there, Tony, after. Okay? It will still be there. It will always be on my YouTube. So once this live is done, you can go back and re-listen, and you will have a beautiful 25 to 30-minute recap of what it is, what the end of days actually are, and what's coming. Okay, sorry, I can't do that now. That's why I ask people to try to get here on time. Sorry about that. Caro, est-ce que c'est écrit dans la Bible, Torah, les 3 jours de noirceur, et qu'est-ce que tu en penses? Ben, on a déjà eu 3 jours de noirceur en Égypte, quand Moïse quand Dieu a utilisé Moïse pour emmener notre peuple, les Hébreux, d'Égypte. OK? Alors, c'est un peu différent. Est-ce qu'il y aura des jours de noirceur? Oui. Est-ce que ça serait 3? Ça se peut que ça soit plus que 3. Alors, c'est pas la même dans le Torah que le Nouveau Testament. OK? Alors, pour nous autres, c'est un peu différent. Même comme j'ai dit, même pour les chevaliers, les 4 chevaliers, c'est complètement, pas complètement, mais un peu différent avec l'Ancien Testament puis le Nouveau Testament. Alors, il n'y a pas beaucoup qui est vraiment simple dans l'Ancien Testament et même le Nouveau Testament. Mais tu vois, le Nouveau Testament donne beaucoup des supposés, des détails de qu'est-ce qui s'en vient. Mais on doit demander des questions parce que ces détails-là sont pas dans l'Ancien Testament, sont pas dans le Kabbale. On a certains petits détails, on a des idées très générales. OK? Alors, je vais répondre à ta question de même. Merci pour la question. Merci à toi, Frankie. Ça fait un plaisir. Un plaisir pour moi, excuse. So I just see before there's another question that's put up there. I see one here. I don't know if that would be the next one, but I'm going to answer. The 50 lost books of the Bible. So where does the number 50 come from, Kat? Who made that up? Who said there's exactly 50 lost books? We know that there's many, many books that were lost. There's many writings that have been lost. Okay. There's tons that have not been lost, that have just been hidden specifically. And but we know that the Old Testament is complete. There is nothing lost of the Old Testament. The same Torah that I can go to synagogue and read today. Okay, well, that's the scroll. I actually have one at home. It is the 5 books of Moses. There are prophecies. We have the book of Esther as well, and a few other things. So that there is nothing lost in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the Torah. Okay, nothing. There are writings that have been, bienvenue, Caro. There are writings that have been lost, that have been hidden. There are gospels. We know there are over 30 gospels, including a gospel of Mary, by the way. Mary Magdalene. Not Jesus' mother, Miriam, but Mary Magdalene. And a gospel of Judas. The church chose to only include 4. So when you realize that there were over 30 Gospels and they only included 4 in the New Testament, right off the bat, you know you have to take everything with a grain of salt with what the church did. And there were so many different versions, okay? That's number 1. Are there books that have been lost? Are there writings that have been lost? Absolutely. Even a lot of the books that they have found, a lot of the ancient writings that they have found, like some of the Gospels, books of Enoch, for example, a lot of those are not even complete. So to find all the missing books, all the missing writings are impossible. But the Bible itself, the Old Testament, the Torah, is complete. It's the same Torah that was almost 3,800 years ago. In fact, any Torah scroll, you can be here in Canada, the United States, you can go to South America, you can go to China, you can go to Japan, you can go to India, you can go to Northern Europe, you can go to Eastern Europe, you can go to Ethiopia, anywhere in Africa, South Africa, and it's the same Torah. Nothing has been lost. Okay? There are writings and teachings that have come after that have been lost. Yes. Are they worth reading? Anything you can get your hands on? Yes. The Gospel of Judas is fantastic. The Book of Enoch is fantastic. Okay, I would start with the Book of Enoch. If you want to read something, read the Book of Enoch. It's absolutely fantastic. Okay, I would stick with that. Est-ce que ceux qui sont décédés dans la foi, est-ce qu'ils vont revenir vivre sur la terre après Armageddon? Oui, Nicole. Ceux qui étaient pour Dieu, qui avaient de la foi, puis qui étaient des bonnes personnes, vont revenir. Là, la question, est-ce qu'ils vont revenir tout de suite ou pas? Ça, on n'est pas sûr. Il y a ceux qui seront peut-être tout de suite. D'autres, ça va prendre un peu plus de temps, mais ceux qui ont eu de la foi et qui étaient des bonnes personnes vont revenir dans leur corps. Ben, en effet, c'est le corps qui va revenir en premier, puis l'âme qui va descendre dans le corps. Très bonne question, merci beaucoup. Je vais juste checker quelque chose ici. Y a-t-il d'autres questions? I've read Enoch. Brent, fantastic. Fantastic. Can you just call Sam, please, and tell him to go pick up his brother?
Yeah.
Thank you. C'est quelle la version de la Bible la plus véridique, most truthful, ce qui procurait qu'on se connaît? Ben, comme j'ai dit, c'est une très bonne question. C'est l'Ancien Testament, le Torah, que je répète, que Jésus lui-même utilisait. Tout vient du Torah. Nouveau Testament, c'est 3/4 copié du Torah. C'est pour ça que ça s'appelait New Testament, Old Testament, New Testament. Même le Coran utilise beaucoup qui vient de l'Ancien Testament. Ils ont ajouté beaucoup aussi, on s'entend. Mais le problème avec le Torah, c'est que la plupart des traductions qui ont été faites sont fausses. Okay? Je lis hébreu. J'ai étudié l'Ancien Testament, le Torah en hébreu original. Et souvent, je lis des traductions qui sont faites par l'Église. Et je regarde la même page, je ne sais pas ce que ça dit. Et la plupart du monde n'a aucune idée de l'hébreu. Alors, c'est très dur de dire. Puis même l'Ancien Testament est très, 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 très compliqué. Il y a, comme je dis, on peut étudier l'Ancien Testament toute notre vie et vraiment rien comprendre. Alors, celui qui est la plus véridique, celui qui dit la vérité, c'est l'Ancien Testament. Ce n'est pas juste à cause que je suis juif. J'ai étudié le Nouveau Testament. J'ai étudié le Coran. OK? Mais d'après mes études, d'après mes connaissances à moi, voilà. Tony, you're fantastic, but these are not questions for this live. I'm sorry. This is not the right time. I'm trying to focus right now on the end of days. I told, and I'm not picking on you. I told someone else before that was asking me questions about demons and this or that. It's not the right life for that. Okay, it's unfortunately it's not the right life. We got to focus on the end of days. Please, guys, keep the questions to the end of days. What we can do to prepare, and what's coming. Martin, il n'y a pas de problème. I'm sorry, Tony, but I gotta stick to my plan here, because if I allow just any questions every live that I have, we're not going to get anything done, unfortunately. Don't take it personal, please, okay? So there we have it. I think here there's a few comments. Thank you. You're welcome. Pleasure. No worries. I thank you, Tony, for understanding. It's just I got to do it. I got to stick with the game plan on a live, or none of them will ever work. It'll just be all over the place. Are there any other questions there? Thank you for all you do, Brian. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just try to do the best I can with the gift that I have. I try to make a difference. If I can help one person, then I'm happy. Caro's mentioning there. I see a comment. J'ai lu Enoch. Fantastic. Très bon. And yes, there just the nice lady, Melissa, who helps me here. She's mentioning in the chat that when we have a private channel, in the monthly Zoom calls, that I'm going to have a monthly Zoom call where any and all questions can be asked. It's going to be a free-for-all. Anything goes. And there will be absolutely no censorship at all. And I just want to remind people, I don't know if there's any more questions. Love this show. You're talking about me, Rob? You love this show? Thank you, buddy. I hope you're talking about me and not another show. And yes, Marie-Christine, to protect the armor of God. And what is the armor of God? Well, the armor of God is faith in God. Okay? The armor of God is faith and trust in God Almighty the Father. That's what it is. Okay? So I just want to remind people as well, if you haven't already done so, click the notification bell, subscribe, please like, comment, and share once the live has stopped. Okay, share it so other people can maybe get some good knowledge as well and help them prepare or go back to God. It's Wednesday. Friday, I will be releasing what we call a long video. It's going to be between 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm actually going to be talking, I mentioned Kabbalah a lot. Going to be talking about it Friday night. So tune in. I think I'm going to take one more question. We're almost at about the hour and a half. It's not a question, it's a comment. Il est écrit dans les 10 commandements de ne pas tuer, alors comment peut-on se protéger? Nicole, écoute-moi. En premier, je vais répondre à ça parce que ça a à faire avec nous protéger. En premier, c'est pas écrit de ne pas tuer. Ça, c'est une fausse traduction, puis c'est fait exprès par le mal, cette traduction-là. En hébreu, ça dit « ne commis pas meurtre prémédité ». Okay? On a le droit de tuer pour manger et pour nous protéger. Nicole, tu dois comprendre avec qu'est-ce qui s'en vient, okay? Avec qu'est-ce qui s'en vient, sois prête à faire ce que tu as à faire pour protéger toi et ta famille. Il n'y a nulle part dans l'Ancien Testament, nulle part dans les 10 commandements, ça dit que tu n'as pas le droit de te protéger. Actuellement, c'est l'opposite. Dans l'Ancien Testament, dans le Torah, c'est clair que tu n'as pas le droit de laisser quelqu'un te faire mal. OK? C'est clair. Alors, c'est une fausse traduction. On a le droit de tuer, on n'a pas le droit de commettre meurtre. C'est ça en hébreu. Il y a une grosse différence. OK? Très important de savoir la différence. OK? So, thank you guys. I don't know if okay, I see I'm going to take one last question here from Frankie. Verrons-nous Dieu à la fin des temps et sera-t-il sous forme humaine? Dieu n'est jamais sous forme humaine, mon ami. C'est ça que le monde pense que Jésus, Dieu n'est jamais en forme humaine. Dieu est tout, mais en même temps, Dieu est hors de tout. Dieu a tout créé. Dieu existait avant n'importe quoi d'autre, avant l'existence. Dieu existait avant l'univers. C'est Dieu qui a créé l'univers. Alors, tu ne vas jamais voir Dieu en forme humaine. Il va se manifester dans des différentes formes que tu vas voir, mais ça ne serait jamais en forme humaine. C'est pour ça qu'il a des prophètes. C'est pour ça qu'il a envoyé Jésus pour vous autres, son fils. OK? Pas lui-même. Même Jésus lui-même disait, je suis le fils. Et je prie à mon Père. OK? Alors, est-ce que tu vas voir Dieu? C'est clair dans les prophéties, Frankie, que tout le monde va savoir quand c'est fini et quand Dieu est là, quand sa présence se manifeste avec nous. Ça, c'est clair, mais il ne sera pas en forme humaine. Mais le plus saint que quelqu'un est, le plus de foi que quelqu'un a en Dieu, le plus que quelqu'un fait des bonnes choses, le plus que quelqu'un fait des bonnes choses et aide des autres, et répand les mots, les paroles de Dieu, le plus que tu vas voir et comprendre et ressentir quand la manifestation de Dieu est sur terre beaucoup plus puissant. Ça, je peux te dire. Alors, merci beaucoup. C'est tout pour les questions. Ça fait 1h30. Je veux remercier tout le monde qui soit là. Des très, très, très bonnes questions. Que Dieu vous bénisse aussi, Daniel. Merci beaucoup. I see there's another question about the two witnesses. That's very complicated. I'm not going to get into that right now, unfortunately. Okay, and merci, Caro. J'apprécie. And that's it, guys. Thank you for the questions. I appreciate you being here. Unfortunately, I don't have the time or the energy to do this all night as much as I would love to. Merci à toi, Nicole. Ça fait plaisir, Manon. Merci aussi à toi, Kat, pour être là. Merci tout le monde pour être là avec moi. Mes lives vaut la peine à cause que j'ai du monde comme vous qui sont là, avec moi, qui écoutent, qui demandent des questions, qui partagent. Thank you, Simon. I appreciate it. God bless you too. Merci à toi aussi, Lorraine. Bonne fin de soirée. Thank you, Azaza. God bless you as well. And yes, the video on the Kabbalah comes out Friday. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Feel free as well. Francesca, share it as well. Thank you guys for being there. I do what I do because there are people like you that are willing to support me and share it and spread the message. Any questions I didn't get to, I'm not going to really have access to the chat after. So please feel free. Any questions I didn't get to, you can write them in the comments. Okay? And I will try to answer them, especially if I see that you've shared this video on your social media. Don't be greedy. Don't ask a question just for yourself. Okay? Don't be shy. Share it. Spread the good stuff with other people, right? Like God himself says, if you have plenty, share with those who don't. Brent, thank you. I'm grateful that you're here and taking part in this. And I'm grateful that God gave me a chance to share whatever knowledge. I don't have all the answers, far from it. The more I study, the more I know I don't know very much. Okay? I hope that sometimes I know, when I say I don't know much, I hope I don't know much, a little bit more than everyone else who doesn't know much. Okay? So thank you. Merci à toi aussi, Huguette. Rob, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Jean-Nathan, merci aussi. Joanne Berube, merci. God bless you all. Que Dieu vous bénisse, s'il vous plaît. Likez, mettez des commentaires et partagez-le. Et n'oublie pas vendredi. OK? Et la semaine prochaine pour la prochaine live. Que Dieu vous bénisse. God bless you all. Till next Wednesday, the next live.